In today's video, I'll help you decide whether the early access city builder, Land of the Vikings, is worth your time and money. We'll start with a 30-second overview of the game before moving on to a more detailed analysis of what you actually do in the game, what the future roadmap looks like, and the price you can expect to pay. If you find my videos useful, please consider supporting me via Patreon, but enough of that. Let's get stuck into the 30-second summary. The game is your typical city builder. Your villagers gather resources, construct buildings, and produce goods that are stored for later. As your population grows, you must build more of everything to keep them warm and fed, because winter can be an absolute bitch. You can build wherever you like, and eventually construct ships for trade missions or raiding. Villager statistics are ridiculously detailed, and the Tree of Life is an interesting version of your typical tech tree. From the beautiful environment to the relaxing music, Land of the Vikings is just so chilled. If that brief summary hasn't put you off yet, let's delve into the detail of what you actually do in this game. You start with a selection of maps to choose from, ranging from large to small, plentiful resources or scarce, and those resources can either be nearby or far away. Those are, in effect, your difficulty settings. I also highly recommend enabling disasters, as the earthquakes and thunderstorms often mix things up by destroying a key building, and they are a reasonably decent visual and audible spectacle too. Once you get going, you already have a handful of key buildings, and the game gives you objectives to follow along with the occasional tutorial box to teach you the basics. The tutorial is pretty bare bones here, but the game is quite easy to pick up, even if you're new to the genre. The only times I couldn't figure out how to complete the next objective, it was because I hadn't researched the corresponding technology yet by building up my population, which gives you more fame to unlock the tech on the Tree of Life. Wood must be collected throughout the game, and trees will regrow until you build over that ground, so you'll find yourself rotating between a few different forests to provide wood at first. However, later on you'll need to stray further and further to find fresh wood as you've built over where those original forests once were, a depressing reflection of how we're destroying our planet. But anyway, it won't be long until you need to process that wood into timber for buildings, and it's the same for stone too. Harvest, process, and store these two basic resources, and builders will pick them up from the local warehouse as and when required. Speaking of builders, by default, all of your villagers will be labourers, which means they will predominantly collect wood and stone, but labourers do cover a few other jobs, such as turning wood into firewood. Most other jobs require you to allocate a specific villager to that role in each building, which is where things start to get interesting. For example, you've already got a field producing wheat. The farmers will plant it, harvest it, and store it in the local wheat storage. To turn that into bread, you'll need to build a windmill and allocate a couple of villagers to that mill. They'll go collect the wheat, bring it back to the mill, and turn it into bread. After that, a market worker will collect it and store the bread in a market until the villagers are ready to collect it and eat the bread at home. So yeah, pretty detailed. You can track each villager and watch this happening in real time, by the way. However, not all villagers are created equal. Each has a variety of traits and skills that better suit them to certain jobs. For the windmill, you want workers who are strong. So when you're allocating for that role, you can sort your available villagers by those who are strongest, and voila, you have the best villager for that job. This gets more complex as certain jobs require two skills, so finding a villager with a healthy balance of the two would be best. Eventually, you'll have a team of builders, farmers, warehouse workers, carpenters, stonemasons, blacksmiths, tailors, miners, shipbuilders, gatherers, hunters, and so many more. So if Bjorn McViking is a bit fat, lazy, and stupid by nature, that's fine. Just let them chop some wood. They'll probably just die from a work accident anyway. So you're just about getting the hang of things. Labourers are gathering resources and storing them. Builders are using those to build, and you've allocated workers to specific jobs to create a variety of processed materials such as clothing, firewood, and food. By this point, building more and more houses should increase your population, but then winter comes, which is a pretty big deal in this game. If summer is a time for expansion and building up your stores, winter is a time to batten down the hatches and keep people as happy as possible in a way that will remind you of Frostpunk, but not as brutal. Firstly, certain jobs simply can't function during winter. Most notably, any unharvested crops will spoil as soon as the first snow hits, and gatherers won't be able to pick herbs and fruit from bushes. Ideally, your villagers will have winter clothes to keep them warm, provided your tailor can get enough leather, which I never could, and firewood to keep their homes warm. Villagers can get sick. Villagers can just get pissed off. Basically, everyone will hate you by the middle of winter if you haven't prepared properly during the summer and autumn months. You need enough food stored to keep them fed and may have to slaughter some of your animals in order to achieve that. It's not as painful as other games, but winter does mix up the gameplay and gives you something to think about as you increase your population each year. Disasters we've already touched upon, but you can imagine every now and again an earthquake might happen which destroys a building or two at random. As a mechanic, they're just kind of annoying, but they're fun to watch, and the developers have hinted that the Viking side of this game will definitely draw upon Norse mythology, so you may well end up consulting with a soothsayer who really does say sooths, or slaughtering a goat to appease the gods and your villagers in an attempt to stop future earthquakes from happening, for example. The Tree of Life is literally your tech tree. You unlock your way up the tree or along a branch by accumulating fame. You get that by completing objectives, keeping your villagers happy, and growing your Viking population. Some unlocks are simply a boost to villager walking speed, but the bigger ones will unlock new buildings, and therefore new items can be created. As with many features of this game, the core mechanic isn't new, but the way it's packaged and presented to you is somewhat novel and always pretty to look at. Speaking of pretty, decorating your Viking village not only makes it look better, most decorations boost some sort of statistic. Signposts help your villagers find their way and walk faster. Scarecrows increase crop yields, and barrels increase the storage of nearby buildings. I'm not particularly interested in making my village look pretty, but even I found myself meticulously scouring the decorations tab, because ultimately it's easy to provide some stat boosts and make your village look good at the same time. What can I say? A path doesn't look the same anymore without a row of big Viking torches and an archway that helps my villagers move faster and improves their happiness. I'm a changed man. Trade comes a bit later in the game once you've set up the relevant dock and built your first trade ship. The UI is a bit fiddly at this point, but essentially you select a ship, select a bunch of sailors, which the game can auto-select for you. You then have to supply them with enough food for the journey and state which products you would like to buy and sell, all of which contributes to the overall weight of the ship, which can't go over a set maximum, restricting your choices. Sailors also require beer for happiness, which is a nice touch, but I hope the logistics of trading is fleshed out so that goods sold and goods purchased are separated from each other, as they won't be on the ship at the same time. It's a great way to make money. I personally mined a ton of iron, so I could trade it for other things, such as winter coats, because my tailor just wasn't very good at tailoring, and you do get the occasional visit from another ship, where you can decide to buy some of what they have, if you so wish. Once you go a bit further on the Tree of Life, you can start to train warriors. As long as you have the right equipment and villagers available, you can train them. They don't do all that much at the moment, but you can send them out on a ship as a raiding party. You can see the strength of your raiding ship, the strength of the place you're looking to attack, and you can ask other settlements to join you, but of course you'll have to share the booty. You can even adjust the way they attack and see the impact that has on their chances of success. This is going to be fleshed out in future updates, but we'll get to that in a moment. Thanks for sticking with us this far. Just a few more mechanics to explore so you know how the game works before we move on to the future roadmap. I need to highlight just how detailed the statistics and relationships are for each villager. It really does have an element of Crusader Kings 3 about it, as you can see exactly who each villager lives with, their partner, and their children. One family I saw must have had 9 children, and I've got to say, I'm impressed, even if there's nowhere near enough room in that little house I built for them. Villagers die for a variety of reasons and will need to be replaced at work when they do. You can even see if someone's husband or wife has died, which is a bit depressing. You can zoom instantly to where each villager is, where they live, and where they work. You can see their skills, such as strength, speed, intelligence, as well as their age, level of happiness, what's making them angry, and many other details that add so much depth to this game. Villagers aren't just faceless stormtroopers. They have a personality and a skill set that have an effect on your game and how you best make use of them. Which leads us onto our final section on narrative events. Occasionally an event will pop up, much like other games, including Frostpunk and Humankind. You will be presented with a set of choices and be told their effects, often on villager happiness and triggering future events. 2 families may argue over a stolen dagger, which may lead you to outcast somebody wrongly. Newcomers may upset the balance for those who are long established in the village. These scenarios are a welcome distraction from designing and growing your village, even if they don't have a huge effect on the game at present, another area that has great potential to be fleshed out. So now you have a decent idea of how to play the game, what makes it different from other similar titles, and particularly as it's an early access title, what can we expect from the future? The biggest criticism you could level at this game at the moment is that it doesn't have many mechanics that make it unique. It does have some bugs, but the systems generally play it safe and can be found in other games. However, please remember, it's early access, and although you can compare it to games such as Banished, that game has been around for years and has a bunch of mods to improve it too. What you can say about Land of the Vikings is the game is very relaxing and kind of easy. It looks amazing, zooming in and down to what is effectively a first-person view. It's just fun to walk the streets of the town you've created along with your villagers. The landscape is beautiful, the ocean looks great. It's just an incredibly relaxing game. I know some of you aren't looking for relaxing, but actually a lot of you have said that you are. Land of the Vikings is a perfect way to spend an hour after a long day at work, maybe sipping a warm beverage before you go to bed. Absolute bliss. I also know that many of you like to support indie developers, and Land of the Vikings is a small team of guys with a mixture of talents, but have had to fill the gaps to get the game to where it is. Again, there are some bugs, but the developer is very committed to updates, which have been coming thick and fast on Steam with a little and often approach. A very good sign, and long may that continue. They've also just released a roadmap, which I'll share with you now. I think it's safe to say the first 3 are what we can expect in 2023. Having to defend your village and build walls will be an interesting addition to the game, as I know many of you love a good wall. The building editor looks particularly interesting, as you will literally be able to create and use your own buildings. Very cool. Then we have more in the way of diplomacy. They're a small team, we need to be patient, but it's an interesting roadmap, much of which looks promising, but we shall see when the first big update comes. So now you know how to play the game, and what the future might look like. How much are they charging us for all of this right now? The game is priced at $20, £18 or €20. It did have a 10% discount when it first released, but has otherwise not yet been on sale, understandably, as it's such a new game. For an early access title, I've found the game to be solid, with bug fixes coming thick and fast, but overall content is at a point where I would have liked the current price to be a bit lower. If you like Vikings and you like city builders, then by all means go for it. Otherwise, my suggestion is to wishlist the game, await further news on content updates, and see if there are any discounts in future sales. In my opinion, all this game needs is one decent-sized content update and a slight sale, maybe only 10%, and it will be a very interesting proposal for many of you, whether you love a city builder or just need a bit of relaxation in your life. A quick note on alternatives: you could understandably compare the game to Frozenheim. They certainly look similar on the surface, but the reality is they play very differently. Frozenheim is more of an RTS. Land of the Vikings is more about worker allocation, but there are similarities there, enough for Frozenheim players to at least consider Land of the Vikings. So let's bring this all together and discuss whether Land of the Vikings is the right game for you today. For an early access indie title, the game has had a good launch. The systems work, because they didn't take too many risks in the first place. It looks good and is relaxing. Not too much of a challenge, but not everyone is looking for a heart-pounding experience all of the time. It doesn't have a multiplayer mode, but the game seems to have a very good grounding to build upon. The main appeal is that the game looks good and is relaxing to play, so if you like the sound of that, and you like the Viking theme, this game could pull you away from your other city builders. As a general note, perhaps wait and see what comes with the next batch of new content and whether it goes on sale over the holiday, because if it does, you don't even need to be a city builder to enjoy this game. The learning curve is reasonable, you're not constantly fighting fires or villager revolts, just trying to make your way in a Viking world. If you found this video useful, please consider leaving a like and checking out my other similar videos. If you're a long-time viewer, perhaps consider supporting the channel via Patreon, link in the description, where you can look at and influence upcoming content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.